What is the scariest event that you have been through? So this one is straight up weird, but it's true. I had gotten my very first apartment back in 2006. It was a one-bedroom upstairs, with a side entrance that had steps leading up to my door. You had to walk through 2 doors to access a private entrance, if you will. Anyway, I was living alone for 6 months before my fiancé moved in, was working 2 jobs to maintain rent, etc. Started noticing my door mommy entrance would be left open despite being locked. The apartment also had a basement area carpeted that served as a laundry storage room. About 3 months into living there, I kept hearing footsteps. At night I couldn't explain. I'd be woken up by the door creaking slowly, etc. I thought I was just being paranoid until one night I looked out my window and saw a lady standing in the parking lot staring at my window. I thought nothing of it, like maybe she was looking for the person downstairs or whatever. Well, long story short, my landlord never changed the locks or gave me an updated key. This woman was the prior resident. I woke up one night to grab a quadrat to rehydrate when out of nowhere someone sprints past me from the kitchen shoulder, checks me and bolts downstairs. Now I had no camera, any footage, so I didn't call the police, but I immediately called my landlord and demanded the locks get changed. I explained what happened, and he apologized profusely and even sent me a 50 gas card and $100 off my rent next month. Locksmith came next morning whilst at work. Landlord left a note explaining this. Remember that side door downstairs I told you about that leads to a laundry room? I kept hearing sounds beneath me like closets opening or whatever. Well, that prior 10 and a 29-year-old woman was actually living downstairs and been sneaking into my apartment with her then working key every night, stealing my food or even sitting on my couch. Dead serious. I found this out because the landlord found her in a storage closet. She tried running past him and he tackles her to the ground. She was the one who got spooked when I woke suddenly and shoved me to conceal who she was. Scariest ever. I was on a hike alone in a national park. I came around to bend in the trail and found myself standing a very short distance away from a bison. Stupidly, I stopped to take pictures. The bison was agitated and started stomping his foot and shaking his head. I really didn't know how to react and wasn't sure if it would be worse to try to run away, so I was paralyzed by the time I realized he was charging towards me. I just remember thinking it might be a while before anyone found me and wondering if it would be possible for me to call the park ranger phone number I had taken down before I started my hike. In the split second, I was considering how I would deal with my injuries while watching this huge animal charge towards me. I let out a high-pitched scream. For whatever reason, this seemed to shock the bison and he stopped running towards me. Now he was very close to me, staring at me and panting. All I could focus on was the fly in his eyes. He stared, panted, and occasionally shook his head. I could feel the force of his breathing from where I was standing. I was terrified and just started talking to the bison about how this was all a misunderstanding after the fairly tense standoff that seemed like it went on for eternity. The bison turned around and walked away. A few months after my mom passed away from cancer, I returned to my college town to start working and going back to school. I started dating this guy we will call him K for reference, and one night we decided to just take a drive on some back roads and listen to music. This car came up on us really fast and kept flashing his lights. We slowed down to let him pass, but he would not pass and kept riding the bumper of the car the rate was driving, and decided to turn onto a county road to let the car pass and to turn around to go home because we were already kind of freaked out. The car whipped in behind us and trapped us in. The driver got out and asked if he could borrow a phone to call his wife as the phone was dead, in a low tone. I told Kay I was not comfortable with this at all and begged him to just get out of there. They decided to let the guy borrow his phone. At this point, I decided to dial 911 on my phone and was ready to hit send if the guy stole Kay's phone. When the guy went to hand back Kay his phone, he pulled out a gun and pointed it at me and told us both to get out. He took my phone from my hand before I could hit that send button and pistol whipped Kay in the head. He took my purse and then ordered me to take off my clothes so he could watch Kay do sexual things to me against my will and who knows what else. I told him to know that I would rather be shot and potentially die than raped. Then I lied and told him while he was on Kay's phone that I had called the police and they would be there any minute, so he needed to leave. He pointed the gun at me again and said, "I'm going to find you and kill you." Got in his car and left. I am from a very small town, and the town I went to college in was also very small with little crime. I am still very traumatized from this. The event, even though it happened almost 10 years ago while in college, coming home from a late class on campus 7 to 8 p.m. An older the man, definitely not a student, rode past. I was on a bike and did a 180 around and slowly was following me immediately. got a bad feeling and pulled out my phone like I got a call and I was talking to someone. I was close to my dorm and got to the front entrance, go up the stoop stairs, and the guy hops off his bike, hurriedly parks it to the side of the stoop and slips in behind me when I scan my keycard. Really bad vibes now, so I hang out at the front desk as he waits in the lobby like he was just check out the ceilings. I act like I'm checking my mailbox and I'm avoiding him following me down to my dorm room. He's visually getting agitated and ends up going down the left set of stairs leading to the bottom floor where the dorm was. This freaks me out and I don't want him to ambush me, and so I walked across the main floor building to the east lobby and go downstairs, over there through the labyrinth of the basement in this old dorm building to my side of the dorm's building. Bottom floor had like a boiler type hallway in between, super creepy, and we used to set up a haunted houses down there because it's literally a maze. I'm navigating the turns and at one point you can see the hallway of the dorms on the east side, mine on the west, and I see the older creep walk past the opening. Never saw me as he was looking ahead, never held my breath for so long. WF was he wandering the basement of a sophomore dorm? After I felt it was safe, I ran the rest of the way to my room and locked it behind me like what would have happened, but everything inside of me was screaming that something was dangerous. I was camping with a friend way out in the sticks. Around 11 p.m. a van rolls up and a couple guys get out. The one in the middle was one of the thickest dudes I had ever seen. He had to be 6'2" and like 200 of neck and shoulders. They pretty much bum rushed our site and he immediately picked up my axe I had been splitting wood with that was on the ground. Then I saw he was messed out of his mind. He starts going on and on about how his girlfriend was a little drunk and got lost from their sight, and he had to get her back so she wouldn't hurt herself. I don't even want to imagine what that the girl was running from. We were a long way from anything, so I tell him I hadn't seen her. He tries and succeeds at intimidating me, but eventually drives off, so I tell the friend I'm with, who is a smallish woman, to go sleep. In the car, I would have left, but I was pretty drunk, and the last thing I can afford is a do. I tell her I'll stay in the tent and she should lock herself in the car, but I am way too jacked to go to sleep, so I sit by the fire for a while trying to drink away my adrenaline. Fast forward what had to be a couple hours, and I can hear them rolling down the gravel road, slowly coming back from the way they came. As anyone who has camped knows, out in the woods, especially at night, you can hear stuff like that from a mile away. As they round the bend closest to the far side of our site, I can see their headlights are off, and immediately my heart rate jumps to 1,000,000. They stop at the far end of our camp, maybe 60 meters away, and two slimy little get out and slink into the trees. Then the van flicks on the headlights and rolls the rest of the way up to where I am sitting by the fire. Meth guy comes up with an eating grin, saying he is so sorry about how he was a dick and that he saw I was still up on their way back and just wanted to apologize. I told him to cut and told him I knew he was coming back to search through our camp looking for whatever the poor soul had run away from him. Of course, I was not the badass. I was trying to talk evenly and slowly and tried to be nice. I was not trying to get murked. He keeps up his bluff face and is like, yeah, I mean, we did want to check everything out, but I mean no harm. Is it cool if I just look around a bit? And I told him, yeah, that's cool, but if that's the case, I told him to holler at his friends to come out from the woods and stop trying to flank around behind me. Meth guy's face flashed with what was the scariest moment of pure evil, then smiled and then called out his buddies. These guys step out from the woods, maybe 10 meters behind me. It shook me to high heaven. I have no idea how they got so close without me hearing them. So they look through all our and get in their van and roll away. We didn't see them again that night, and I never heard anything about a disappearance or anything on the news, but I still think of time to time what happened to the girl that ran away. I don't have high hopes for what became of her. When I was about 9 years old, my family and I went on a camping trip. We used to go every year for about a week or so. I always looked forward to it. Well, during this specific trip, things changed. We were down at the shore of the lake nearby, swimming and having fun, when some huge, dark, almost black clouds came rolling over the tree line. The lifeguards blew their whistles and started telling people they would just close to the beach area since the storm was thundering and we only had about 30 minutes left of open time. Anyway, so we head back to our campsite and settle in for the evening. My sister and I was changing in our tents out of our swimming suits, and my dad fires up the grill to make some burgers. In the middle of changing clothes, my mom opened the door to the tent, started yelling for us to run to our van and then keep our heads down. We heard what sounded like rocks pelting the top of the tent as we climbed down. Once we got out and make a beeline for the van, we saw a huge funnel cloud forming right above us. We screamed for our dad to come with us, but he refused and called it a bit of a breeze. It won't bother him. Our mom drove us to the parking lot by the boat docks to get us away from the trees. I remember looking up for one moment and seeing the tornado ripping through the woods in the distance. It only lasted for a minute or two, but felt like an hour after everything had calmed down and the storm passed. We drove back toward the campgrounds. Res was flipped and campers were ripped open and hanging from trees. It was horrible. When we got back to our campsite, we saw our main tent had been flattened by a tree that fell and rolled off it. Our dad was still cooking and acted as if nothing happened. He used to be a cross-country trucker and had been through multiple tornadoes. In the Midwest, so this didn't faze him. It scared me from going camping for a few years after. Funny enough, about 4 years later, another tornado struck the same place while we were there, though it wasn't nearly as bad. This actually happened last weekend. My friend and I took a spontaneous camping trip to do Asset. It was my first time doing it, and we didn't have a trip sitter. Rest assured, the friend I was with has to experience with Lid and said he would look after us. We were in an open area at the entrance to a hike, tripping hard and looking at all the pretty colors on the mountain in front of us. We hiked on the trail for a bit but walked back because we didn't want to get lost. Shortly after, we were in the open area again. My friend wanted to listen to music in our tent and left while I stayed. It was a nice looking mountain. I felt compelled to hike more on the trail. What if there was a nice view? The end, I ventured forth without a second thought. I went further than the part my friend and I stopped, and I kept walking and walking. Then it hit me. It's gonna be dark in a couple of hours. I should head back. I turned around, went on my way without carefully retracing my steps because it was one obvious trail, so I thought I ended up on another trail by making a wrong turn and didn't realize it until I was already deep in the woods. I didn't recognize my new surroundings and turned around again. At this point, my heart was shooting out of my chest. The bushes moved and made so like something big was stalking me. I had a million worried thoughts firing all at once. This is how I was sweating buckets. All I had on me were my keys and wallet. There was no way I was gonna survive soon enough. I saw the open area where the hike begins way off into the distance. Thanks for listening. The subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more things you don't want to know. Let us know in the comments what you think about these stories.